roll call. If you would press your present button, please. Or absent if you're not here. Announcements, staff?
After last month, I don't think you can excuse to do it something proper again.
Brian, hit confirm.
We're good, thank you. Staff announcements.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, I have a couple of announcements. First of all, we do have a withdrawal. That would be item 14. If I can find it. Mislaid it from myself. But item 14, thank you, Hart's Landmark has been withdrawn from consideration. Second announcement I have is the next Grassland Public Input Meeting will be held this coming Monday night at Tuesday night, I beg your pardon, this coming Tuesday night at Grassland Middle School. Begin at 6:30, and we're hoping to publicize and have a big crowd. I think the committee and staff have worked quite hard on this, and we're getting to where we're beginning to wind this down. So as a result, we'd like to see as many folks as we can get in there. Third announcement is we'd like to request that on the consent agenda, we have put item 4 on the consent agenda, which is Cascade Estates. We'd like to request that be heard separately. And finally, 2 weeks ago, staff went to the Kingsport for the Tennessee Chapter American Planning Association. And this is what we came back with, a trophy this time.
Do we have a trophy case?
We're working on that. The sad part is everybody got a trophy that time. It's kind of like 5-year-old soccer. No, I'm just kidding.
Anything else?
We're quite proud of that. No, Mr. Chairman, that'll be all.
Thank you. Consent agenda, excuse me, the minutes of September 12, 2003. Any corrections? Motion made and seconded. Is that going to be on the board? Prepare to vote. Vote now. Record the vote. The motion carries. Thank you. Any old business? None. Consideration of the consent agenda. For those of you on the commission, if you wish to hear an item separately, please say so now. Otherwise, we'll take it as a whole with the exception of agenda item 4. Anyone? Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll begin with item 3, Brins Valley Addition, Section 1, Maintenance Bond for Roads, Drainage, and Erosion Control, $75,000 recommendation, and extended current amount for a period of 6 months. Number 5, Ends of the Cove, Section 1, Maintenance Bond for Landscaping, $9,015, recommendation, release the bond. Item 6, Ends of the Cove, Section 1, Performance Bond for Roads, Drainage, and Erosion Control, $575,000, recommendation, extended current amount for a period of 6 months. Item 7, Security Central Storage, Maintenance Bond for Landscaping, $3,100, recommendation, release the bond. Item 8, Stag's Leap, Section 2B, Performance Bond for Roads, Drainage, and Erosion Control, $227,000, recommendation, convert to maintenance, amount of $100,000, and extend for 1 year. And item 9, Stag's Leap, Section 3A, Performance Bond for Roads, Drainage, and Erosion Control, $9,000, recommendation, convert to maintenance, amount of $6,000, and extend for a period of 1 year.
Thank you, sir. Is there a motion? Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Prepare to vote. Vote now. Record the vote. Motion carries. Thank you. Then item 4, Cascade Estates, maintenance bonds for road drainage and erosion control located off Lewisburg Pike. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Staff has visited the site and noted that no improvements have been made to this development. The roadways currently consist of the base stone and the asphalt binder section. Roadside ditches and the asphalt binder constructed show some signs of deterioration and it appears that very little maintenance has been performed other than some mowing. It should be noted that this bond was implemented in March of 2008, and no builder has requested the issuance of a building permit. It does not appear that the owner is actively seeking buyers for the recorded lots in this development. Staff recommends that this bond be raised to an amount of $125,000 due to current construction cost and extended for a period of 6 months. Mr. Chairman, I'll follow up by saying we pulled this from consent due to the fact that we are raising the bond, and we just like to make sure the commission is aware of the reasons why before we raise a bond.
Thank you, sir. Any questions, William? Don?
Is the applicant here?
I don't believe so. We have, we sent the report to the applicant and have made some attempts to contact the owner of the property and have not been able to make contact with him. So we're still not sure of exactly what is happening with regard to this development. This is a development that started, as I said, back in March of 2008. The owner of the development at that time defaulted pretty much, and he sold this particular portion of the development and some other land surrounding it to the new owner. And it's my understanding that part of the reason why the new owner bought it at that time was it adjoined several hundred other acres that he had. And so that's kind of where it's been for the last 3 years or so. So we're just not real sure of what his intention is with regard to selling these lots, proceeding with the development of the property, vacating the plat, or we're just not sure of his intent at this time.
Okay. Any other questions? Motion?
For staff recommendation. Second.
Have a motion and second. Everybody vote now. Record the vote. Can't do this on the machine because it's pulled out?
It won't, unless there's a button hit here, it won't.
Okay. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
I had abstained.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. You want to do it again, or we all right?
I got it, I abstained.
Okay, all right. Item 10, amendment to the official zoning maps regarding the following tax map parcel and zoning in the zoning district. To rezone from suburban infill and conservation to rural preservation 5, RP5, tax map 38, parcel 3.00, 3.02, 3.03, 6.00, 6.8.00, 9.00, and 12.01. To rezone from rural preservation 1 to rural preservation 5, tax map 38, parcel 24.05 and 24.12. To rezone from rural preservation 1 to rural preservation 5, tax map 51, parcel 11.09. Staff?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Crohan. And this item is a public hearing item. I'm going to read the staff report into the record, and then at the conclusion of that, I think Mr. Chairman, Mr. Lackey is going to invite members of the public to speak. The applicants have requested a map amendment in order to rezone 9 parcels along Old Hillsborough Road from their present zoning, which is a combination of suburban infill and conservation and rural preservation 1, to rural preservation 5. A signed petition making this request has been received from the owners of each of these parcels. It should be noted that there were originally 10 parcels involved in this request. However, following the published date of this month's agenda, the owner of map 38 parcel 8 has requested that their property be withdrawn from this request. The chief distinction between the existing zoning districts and the proposed zoning district relates to the density of residential development allowed, which is as follows. In suburban infill and conservation is 1.2 dwelling units per acre. In rural preservation 1 is 1 dwelling unit per acre. And in rural preservation 5 is 1 dwelling unit per 5 acres. Essentially, these property owners have requested a downzoning of their properties in that the requested zoning district is more restrictive than the existing zoning districts from the standpoint of allowable residential density. Section 4.05 of the zoning ordinance provides some guidance in such matters by outlining a number of factors that should be considered when evaluating a request for a map amendment. Staff believes that a number of these factors may be viewed as supporting this request. One of the key factors that should be considered is the extent to which a proposed map amendment is consistent with the county's comprehensive land use plan. Staff does not believe the existing zoning in the area is inconsistent with the comprehensive plan. However, an argument can also be made that the requested zoning district is not inconsistent with the overall goals and policies of the plan. The area where there appears to be less consistency between the requested map amendment and the comprehensive plan is the area currently zoned suburban infill and conservation, which mirrors the comprehensive plan recommendation for this area. However, in evaluating this request, staff believes that the Harpeth River forms a logical geographic boundary and that the area south of the river within the area currently zoned SIC is very similar in character with the properties further to the south that are currently zoned Rural Preservation 1 or Rural Preservation 5. Based on these findings, coupled with the fact that the property owners are voluntarily requesting that a more restrictive zoning district be applied to the property, staff recommends that the requested map amendment for these properties, with the exception of map 38 parcel 8, which has been withdrawn, be approved and that the attached resolution be forwarded to the County Commission for adoption. And Mr. Chairman, you all have in your packet 3 different maps. And I just wanted to point out real quickly that the first one is simply showing the existing zoning in the area. The second map that is colored both yellow and green shows the parcels that you all recommended for rezoning last month in yellow, and those parcels that are subject to this particular request in green. And then the third map shows in green just those parcels that are subject to this particular request.
Thank you. Thank you, Don. We'll open the meeting for the public hearing at this time. For those of you not familiar, our procedures are as follows. You'll be invited to come to the podium. If you would, at that time, give us your name and address. We would appreciate it. I would also appreciate it if you would stick to this agenda item with your comments. Public hearing is now open. Come on up. Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Mary Brockman, 1407 Old Hillsborough Road, County Commissioner, 9th District. We can debate the issue of whether the zoning ordinance conforms with the comprehensive land use plan defining rural preservation. On this, we're going to have to agree to disagree. Many of us believe that it does not, but there are others who believe that it does. But I do not think anyone can argue with the fact if they go and stand on Old Hillsborough Road and look at the predominant usage that is there now and look at the landscape, that it reflects rural preservation. It does. Going forward, if the 1 acre density continues and you see 1 acre subdivisions lining the road, I do not think that it does. So there's the theoretical of what rural preservation is, and then there is the reality. I think if I look at our farm in particular, it's 114 acres. And if someone buys our farm later on and can put 114 houses on it versus 22, I think that's a powerful visual. So what is rural preservation? In fact, and I will quote Single-family residential development must tread lightly on the rural landscape through very large lots or significant amounts of open space. This particular landscape along Old Hillsborough has a tremendous amount of floodplain due to the main Harpeth and the West Harpeth. So we have floodplain and we have no sewers. Clustering is not really an option. It just doesn't seem to work because of those two parameters. So the 5-acre density is the best of what we can get. And this is an important step. Fayette County, which is the county around Lexington, Kentucky, has 40-acre density in order to protect the bluegrass. So asking for our area to be consistent with the 5-acre rural preservation is what we absolutely need to consider. And I want to make a comment about something that was stated last month, and that was that making changes to the zoning ordinance in the form of an amendment was sort of heresy. And I want to remind everyone here that when the county commission voted to approve the new zoning ordinance, we were specifically told that it was a document that would see many alterations. It was not set in stone. It was a working document that had seen many changes in the past under the old zoning ordinance, and this new one would also see changes. So now that stakeholders have been made aware of what can happen with 1-acre density in this district, they are speaking out. Help us to get what is reflective of real rural preservation. And I want to say that the basis of this grassroots movement, it's not just, well, they want it. This actually has a credible basis based on how rural preservation is defined in the comprehensive plan. And I think that's important. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing us to speak tonight. My name is Clara Priest. My husband and I own both the property at 1440 Old Hillsborough Road and at 1417 Old Hillsborough Road where we live. I've lived on Old Hillsborough Road my entire life, and I hate to admit to you that that's a little over 50 years. And my parents bought the property there, and all my life I was told this area is zoned 5 acres. We can't have any, everybody has to be 5 acres or more. They loved living in the country. They were proud of the area. And my husband and I lived away during college. We lived in Dallas and Miami, and when we had the opportunity to move back 20 years ago, we chose to live just down the street from my mother on Old Hillsborough because it is a beautiful area, because we knew that it wouldn't be developed, because it was over 5 acres. And that's why we chose to be there, and that's why our son loves the area, why he would like to be there someday, and we'd like to be able to give him that property someday. So I would just like to ask you to please make this consideration to allow us to have that. It is a reasonable request, and I think when you have this many property owners asking, I think you can see that we care about the property and we care about the county as you do. And we appreciate Mary Brockman because I think she's just standing up for something that we all believe in. Thank you.
Anyone else?
My name is Susan Kestner. I live at 3210 Del Rio Pike. The last time I was here, I heard grumblings about newcomers. I am not one of them. I grew up in Brentwood. My parents moved us here in 1967. In the interest of full disclosure, while we shopped, recreated, and for all practical purposes lived in Williamson County, our home was just on the other side of the county line in Nashville. At the time, schools were so bad in Williamson County that my parents wanted their 5 children to be educated in Davidson County. My, how things have changed. In fact, quite a lot is different now compared to Williamson County I remember in the 1970s. Demographically, we weren't much different than Wilson and Murray counties, small farming communities. Brentwood had 2 stoplights. Sarah Cannon, AKA Minnie Pearl, called Brentwood Country Club the countryest country club in the country. There were at least 3 meet-and-threes on Franklin's Sleepy Square, and the old Hillsborough Road corridor was farmland so far out in the sticks we could see every star of the Milky Way on a cloudless night. So you're asking why in the world is Williamson County in the 1970s important to this? And it's important because at the last meeting we were reminded that that is when the current densities were applied to the area and have basically remained unchanged since. Those densities were applied. Since then, the county has exploded in terms of population, business expansion, and home development. Today, by one measure, it's the 17th wealthiest county in the entire country with land values to match, very much unlike today's Wilson and Murray counties. I, for one, I like these newcomers. Along with their money, they've brought jobs, good schools, vibrancy, and enough disposable income not only to care about our historic roots, but to bear the cost to preserve them. Many of these newcomers with money have come out Old Hillsborough Road. The corridor is the most expensive estate property in the state, if not the Southeast. If we break it up into 1-acre lots with homes like those that are currently being proposed to be built at half the cost per square foot than what's currently being built in the area, we will not maintain that type of estate value in the future. All of us here understand that the value of our homes and our property are not just dependent on our own investment in the area, but the hundreds of millions, if not into the billions, that have also been collectively invested by the neighbors up and down this corridor. When my neighbor puts in a mile of 4-board fencing at $10 a linear foot, he puts that in and it increases my home value. His investment, my value too. We deserve more today than what the limited, myopic vision of the 1970s was. And that is precisely what this agenda is about. You're right that this is an issue of property rights. It's about the property rights of the vast supermajority of those that want to protect our homes, much more so than the rights of a very few minority that want to cash out on their land values, the very same land values that have been created by the prodigious investments of their neighbors. The last time the county discussed changing our density, the elected representatives of this corridor, the people most knowledgeable about us, and more importantly, the people that are most accountable to us as citizens, were discounted. We have property rights, and if our county governance is not going to initiate anything to protect our investments, those investments made since the 1970s, at least please have the courtesy to allow us to follow the laws and the ordinances of this county to initiate the process and to protect ourselves. Thank you.
Anyone else? Last call? Thank you. We've closed the public hearing at this time. Comments? Questions? Thoughts?
You do have signature of all owners affected by this.
Yes, sir.
With changing to 5 acres, change the road frontage requirements for their lots if they ever decide they want to give land away? Will this affect subdividing some of them into 5-acre tracts?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Want the road frontage requirements for a lot if they decide to divide it up into 5-acre tracts change?
It will come feed under the subdivision regulations as
That's what I'm
opposed to
saying.
the state
Say-
reg
say they
that
need to know
permits
that.
that. Is
Ye-
that not?
Yes, sir, that is correct, and they are larger for a 5-acre parcel than they would be for a 1-acre parcel.
Other comments or questions?
Staff's recommendation for this request for a map amendment.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? I see none. Prepare to vote. Vote now. Record the vote. Motion carries. Thank you. Agenda item 11. Preliminary plat review for Kings Chapel Phase 5 containing 27 lots on 16.80 acres located off Murfreesboro Road in the 5th voting district. Staff?
A revised site plan for this development was approved in September of 2008. The applicant is now requesting preliminary plat approval of Phase 5 of the development, which consists of 27 lots. The phase is consistent in layout to that shown on the revised site plan. Access to this phase will be through an existing development entrance on Highway 96. A second entrance is shown on the overall site plan and will be constructed in conjunction with future phases. As identified in site plan review, a number of items are to be addressed at this juncture, including submission of roads, drainage, and erosion control plans, and approval by TDEC, the county's consultant, and staff for all required sewer treatment and disposal systems. These items have been sufficiently addressed. The applicant has requested a design speed variance for all roads from 30 miles per hour to 25 miles per hour. Staff supports this variance request. The plat is in order and staff recommends approval of the preliminary plat as well as the requested design speed variance. Following must be addressed in conjunction with final plat consideration. Number 1, payment of traffic mitigation funds is outlined in the September 2008 letter from the county's traffic engineering consultant. Number 2, prior to final plat submittal, approval by TDOT of the recently constructed left-hand turn lane or release of the bond by TDOT. Number 3, establishment of performance bonds for roads, drainage, and erosion control. Number 4, establishment of a performance bond for water improvements in favor of Millcrofton Utility District. Number 5, establishment of appropriate performance bonds for the sewer collection system as it relates to this phase. Number 6, execution of a stormwater maintenance agreement and submission of an operation and maintenance plan for stormwater improvements. And number 7, providing 2 copies of the approved final plat in DWG format on recordable media based on Tennessee State Plan Coordinate System prior to signature and recording of the final plat.
Thank you, sir. Questions of staff? Comments? I'm sorry, say that again.
Will we accept staff's recommendation?
Thank
I
you.
have a question, though.
Well, we can do that.
For
Go
that.
ahead. Is there, let it get a second. Is there a second? Motion made and seconded. Go ahead, ma'am.
My question is about the traffic study, since it was done in 2008, and the amount of money that was allotted for the developer to pay. Is that still appropriate? I mean, since it's been 5 years, have the costs increased, and should that amount be changed?
I think it is still appropriate. The build-out was always projected to be a multi-year process, and so I think that was factored in on the front end. But we believe it is still appropriate.
Okay, thanks.
We have a motion second. Any further discussion? I hear none. Prepare to vote. Vote now. Record the vote. Is it counting? Motion carries. Thank you. Agenda item 12, preliminary plat review for Kings Chapel Phase 6, containing 34 lots on 18.95 acres located off Murfreesboro Road in the 5th voting district. Staff?
A revised site plan for this development was approved in September of 2008. The applicant is now requesting preliminary plat approval of Phase 6 of the development, which contains 34 lots. The phase is consistent in layout to that shown on the revised site plan. Access to this phase will be through the existing development entrance on Highway 96. A second entrance is shown on the overall site plan and will be constructed in conjunction with future phases. As identified in site plan review, a number of items are to be addressed at this juncture, including submission of roads, drainage, and erosion control plans, and approval by TDEC, the county's consultant, and staff for all required sewer treatment and disposal systems. These items have been sufficiently addressed. The applicant has requested a design speed variance for all roads from 30 miles per hour to 25 miles per hour. Staff supports this variance request. The plat is in order, and staff recommends approval of the preliminary plat as well as the requested design speed variance. Following must be addressed in conjunction with final plat consideration. Number one, payment of traffic mitigation funds is outlined in the September 2008 letter from the county's traffic engineering consultant. Number two, prior to final plat submittal, approval by TDOT of the recently constructed left turn lane or release of the bond by TDOT. Number three, establishment of performance bonds for roads, drainage, and erosion control. Number four, establishment of performance bond for water improvements in favor of Millcrofton Utility District. Number five, establishment of performance bonds for the sewer collection system as it relates to this phase. Number six, execution of a stormwater maintenance agreement and submission of an operation and maintenance plan for stormwater improvements. And number seven, providing 2 copies of the approved final plat in DWG format on recordable media based on the Tennessee State Plan Coordinate System prior to signature and recording of the final plat.
Thank you, Aaron. Questions of staff?
I've got one question.
Go ahead, Pete.
A while ago on the consent agenda, a article that had been done in 2008, we raised the bond amount because things have changed. Has the traffic mitigation amount changed since 2008 or not?
Staff?
The amount has not changed. It was established by the county's traffic consultant early on, and it was factored in that the build out for this development would be over the course of a number of years. So I think we believe that amount still is appropriate.
Other questions? Motion? Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Prepare to vote. Vote now. Record a vote. Motion carries. Thank you. Agenda item 13, plat review for Kings Chapel Phase 7, containing 38 lots on 22.15 acres located off Murfreesboro Road in the 5th voting district. Staff?
A revised site plan for this development was approved in September of 2008. The applicant is now requesting preliminary plat approval of Phase 7 of the development, which contains 38 lots. Phase is consistent in layout to that shown on the revised site plan. Access to this phase will be through the existing development entrance on Highway 96. A second entrance is shown on the overall site plan and will be constructed in conjunction with future phases. As identified in the site plan review, a number of items are to be addressed at this juncture, including submission of roads, drainage, and erosion control plans, and approval by TDEC, the county's consultant, and staff for all required sewer treatment and disposal systems. These items have been sufficiently addressed. The applicant has requested a design speed variance for all roads from 30 miles per hour to 25 miles per hour. Staff supports this variance request. The plat is in order, and staff recommends approval of the preliminary plat as well as the requested design speed variance. Following must be addressed in conjunction with final plat consideration. Number one, payment of traffic mitigation funds is outlined in the September 2008 letter from the county's traffic engineering consultant. Number two, prior to final plat submittal, approval by TDOT of the recently constructed left turn lane or release of the bond by TDOT. Number three, establishment of performance bonds for roads, drainage, and erosion control. Number four, establishment of a performance bond for water improvements in favor of Millcrofton Utility District. Number five, establishment of the appropriate performance bond for the sewer collection system as it relates to this phase. Number six, execution of a stormwater maintenance agreement and submission of a operation and maintenance plan for stormwater improvements. And number seven, providing 2 copies of the approved final plat in DWG format on recordable media based on the Tennessee State Plan Coordinate System prior to signature and recording of the final plat.
Same song, third verse. Questions? Comments? Mr. Crohan?
I just have one question, and it's just for staff, out of my curiosity. How does the state, I know this is a state road along here, and it's up to them to improve it and everything. Do we make recommendations to them or anything with subdivisions?
Mike, can you answer that?
Yeah, Joe.
Joe?
What happens right now is one of the pending projects, and I'm not sure whether it'll be funded this coming year, it's on the legislative agenda, would be the widening of 96. Those funds would be used toward that at the appropriate time. Now, whether the General Assembly sees fit to fund that, that's unknown right now, but I know that's on their on a number of projects in this region that are under consideration.
Yeah, I know that's been under consideration for a good many years, and I just wondered if we know.
I'm just happy they're talking about it again, Don, to be brutally candid. Yeah.
But do we make any recommendation that there's X amount of houses going on the road that needs to be looked at, or it's just up to them to?
Part of the whole regional transportation planning is we push projects forward, saying this is a project that should be done, needs to be done in our opinion and alike, and we have consistently asked that this project be considered as soon as practicable. And again, it is not considered a regional priority, but I do know that based on the list of projects that recently came out, that evidently some members of the General Assembly have made that request, and that's a step in the right direction. I would offer.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Motion made and seconded. Thank you. Any further discussion? Prepare to vote. Vote now. Record the vote. Motion carries. Thank you. Agenda item 14 is withdrawn. Any other business? Motion to adjourn. We're out of here.
Don.
Excuse me, Don.
I'd just like to compliment our illustrious leaders here that handled the board tonight. It worked, after all this time, it worked fabulous, and we thank them for it.
She's been in training for 7 years.